The tension on the set of Some Came Running had been building for 3 weeks. Everyone felt it. The crew whispered about it during lunch breaks. The director, Vincente Minnelli, paced nervously between takes. Even Frank Sinatra, who was also in the film, kept his distance when the two men were in the same room. Kirk Douglas and Dean Martin were about to explode. It was October 1958, and they were filming in Madison, Indiana. Kirk Douglas was at the height of his powers, a 2-time Oscar nominee, a producer, a star who commanded respect through sheer intensity and will. He was known for his perfectionism, his explosive temper, and his absolute refusal to accept anything less than excellence. Dean Martin was Dean Martin. He showed up late. He rarely rehearsed. He seemed to treat the whole production as a mild inconvenience between golf games and naps. While Kirk prepared obsessively for every scene, Dean would stroll in 5 minutes before cameras rolled, glance at his lines, and somehow deliver a performance that was effortlessly perfect. It drove Kirk Douglas insane. "How can you work like this?" Kirk demanded one morning, after Dean arrived 20 minutes late. "This is a serious film. This is art. And you treat it like a joke." Dean smiled, that lazy smile. "Relax, Kirk. It's just a movie." "Just a movie?" Kirk's face turned red. "I've been preparing for this role for months. I've read the book 4 times. I've studied veterans, their trauma, their pain. And you walk in here like you're doing us a favor by showing up." Dean shrugged. "I read the script. I know my lines. What else do you want?" "I want you to care," Kirk was shouting now. "I want you to show some goddamn respect for the craft." Dean's smile didn't waver. "I respect the craft just fine, Kirk. I just don't need to make a big show of it." Kirk stepped closer. "You're lazy, you're unprofessional, and you're dragging this whole production down." Dean looked at Kirk for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away. "That's right, walk away," Kirk called after him. "That's what you do, isn't it? Walk away from anything that requires real effort." The damage was done. The war had begun. Over the next 2 weeks, the tension escalated. Kirk criticized Dean's every move. Dean responded by becoming even more casual, as if Kirk's fury was a mild breeze that didn't ruffle his hair. They stopped speaking off camera. When they had scenes together, the air crackled with barely contained hostility. Frank Sinatra tried to intervene. "Kirk, you gotta ease up on Dean. He's got his own way of working." "His way of working is no way at all," Kirk snapped. "He's coasting on charm instead of talent. The camera loves him. The camera lies. Real acting comes from here." Kirk pounded his chest. From the heart. From pain and truth. Dean Martin has never felt real pain in his life. He's a lounge singer playing dress-up. Frank's eyes narrowed. "You don't know anything about Dean's pain." "I know enough. I know he's a fraud." It broke on a Thursday evening. They were filming a crucial scene, an emotional confrontation between their characters. Kirk had been preparing all week, arriving 2 hours early. Dean arrived 10 minutes before cameras rolled. He was eating an apple. Kirk watched him approach. "Are you serious right now? We're about to film the most important scene in the movie and you're eating a goddamn apple." Dean took another bite. "I was hungry. You're not even in costume." "I'll be ready. I'm always ready." "You're never ready." Kirk's hands clenched into fists. "You don't prepare, you don't rehearse, you don't do anything except show up and expect the rest of us to carry you." Dean finished the apple. "You done?" "No. I've been watching you for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of you sleepwalking through this production. You know what I think? I think you're scared." Dean's eyes flickered. "Scared of what?" "Scared of trying. Scared of really putting yourself out there. Because if you actually tried and failed, you couldn't hide behind that cool guy act anymore." The set was silent. Nobody talked to Dean Martin like that. Dean looked at Kirk for a long moment. "You don't know me, Kirk." "I know enough." "You don't know anything." "Then prove me wrong," Kirk shouted. "Stop hiding and show me something real." Dean turned and started walking toward his trailer. Kirk's voice followed him. "That's it. Walk away. You're not even man enough to fight back." Dean stopped. He stood there for a long moment, then turned around. "You want to fight, Kirk?" Kirk stepped forward. "I want you to show me you're actually alive inside that empty shell." "Fine." Dean's voice was dangerously calm. "After we wrap tonight, parking lot. Just you and me." Kirk nodded. "Parking lot. After wrap." The scene they filmed that afternoon was electric. Whatever had passed between them channeled into their performances. Kirk gave everything he had, and Dean matched him, beat for beat. For the first time, Kirk saw what Dean Martin was capable of when he stopped hiding. It was magnificent, and it made Kirk even angrier. When Minnelli called cut, Kirk's eyes were locked on Dean. "Parking lot, 10 minutes. Word spread through the set like wildfire. Most put their money on Kirk. He was known to be physical, had boxed in his youth. Dean was bigger, but everyone knew he was a lover, not a fighter. Frank Sinatra cornered Dean outside his trailer. "Don't do this. Kirk's crazy when he's angry." Dean looked at Frank with an expression Frank had never seen before. Something old, something tired. "He's right, Frank. I have been hiding, and I'm tired of it." Frank didn't know what to say. In all the years he'd known Dean, he'd never heard him admit to anything like that. The sun was setting over Madison, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The parking lot was empty except for 2 men standing 20 feet apart. Kirk Douglas had removed his jacket. His fists were clenched. Dean Martin stood with his hands in his pockets, almost peaceful. Kirk spoke first. "You showed up." "I said I would." Kirk started walking toward him. When he was 5 feet away, he stopped. His body was coiled, ready to strike. "Well? Aren't you going to fight? Is that what you really want, Kirk? To hit me? I want you to show me something real." Dean nodded slowly. "Okay, but not with fists. That's not how I show what's real." Kirk's face twisted with frustration. "Then how? You hide behind that smile, that charm, that nothing bothers me act. How does anyone get through to you?" Dean was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, stripped of the casual cool that was his armor. "You want to know why I don't prepare like you do, Kirk? Why I don't obsess over every scene?" "Yes, tell me." "Because if I do that, if I really open myself up, I won't be able to close it again." Kirk's fists slowly unclenched. "What do you mean?" "I grew up in Steubenville, Ohio. You know what that was like for an Italian kid in the 20s? We were dirt. My father worked in a steel mill, came home every night barely able to stand. My mother cleaned houses for rich people who treated her like she was invisible." Kirk was silent. This wasn't what he had expected. "I started working when I was 12, shining shoes, dealing cards in illegal gambling rooms. By 15, I was running bootleg liquor for people who would have killed me if I'd made one wrong move." Dean's voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something raw. "I learned early that showing what you feel is dangerous, that caring too much gets you hurt, that the only way to survive is to make everyone think nothing touches you, because the moment they know you care, they know how to destroy you." Kirk Douglas stood motionless, his anger draining away. "I'm not lazy, Kirk. I prepare more than you know. But I do it alone, in private. Because the moment I let someone see me trying, really trying, I'm vulnerable. And I've been vulnerable before. It almost killed me." "What happened?" Dean was quiet for a long moment. His voice dropped to a whisper. "I had a brother, Bill. He was everything to me. He was the one who told me I could be somebody. He believed in me when no one else did." Kirk waited. "He died when I was 17. Industrial accident at the mill. I was there when it happened. I saw things a 17-year-old shouldn't see." The parking lot was completely silent. "After that, I made a decision. I would never let anyone see me hurt again. I would smile. I would joke. I would make everyone think Dean Martin floats through life without a care, because the alternative was feeling everything, and feeling everything meant feeling that day at the mill, Every day. For the rest of my life. Kirk felt something break inside him. All his anger crumbled in the face of what Dean was telling him. Dean, I didn't know. Nobody knows. Not even Frank. Not even my wives. Dean looked at Kirk. You wanted to see something real. Now you've seen it. Why? Why tell me? Because you were brave enough to push. Everyone else accepts the act. They like the act. But you kept pushing. You called me a fraud, a coward. I was wrong. No. You were right. I am scared. I've been scared every day since my brother died. Kirk felt tears stinging his eyes. He, Kirk Douglas, who never cried. I owe you an apology, Kirk said. I judged you without knowing you. But your way, it's not laziness. It's survival. It's armor, Dean said. Same as your intensity is armor. We're not so different, Kirk. We're both terrified little boys pretending to be men. We just built different walls. Kirk was quiet. Dean had just described his entire life. My father, Kirk said slowly, used to beat me. When things went wrong, when I looked at him the wrong way. He beat me until I learned that the only way to survive was to be stronger than him. Tougher. Dean nodded. And you've been proving you're stronger ever since. I've been proving I'm not him. That I'm not a man who destroys people weaker than himself. But you do destroy people, Kirk. Just not with your fists, with your words, your judgment. Kirk closed his eyes. It was true. I've spent 50 years being angry, Kirk said. And you reminded me of where I came from. Not because you're Italian, but because you made it look easy. And I hate easy, because nothing in my life has ever been easy. It's not easy for me either, Kirk. It just looks that way. That's the whole point. They stood there in silence as the last light faded from the sky. Two men who had come to fight, now standing in the darkness, stripped bare. Finally, Kirk spoke. What do we do now? Dean smiled. We go back inside. We finish this movie, and we never speak of this again. Kirk extended his hand. Dean shook it. I was wrong about you, Kirk said. You're one of the bravest men I've ever met. And you're not the bully I thought you were. You're just a kid from the slums who never stopped fighting. We're both kids from the slums. Yeah, we are. They walked back toward the studio together. The crew members who had gathered to watch a fight saw something unexpected. Kirk Douglas and Dean Martin walking side by side, laughing. Nobody ever found out what happened in that parking lot. When people asked, Kirk would just smile and say, Dean Martin taught me something about fighting. When they asked Dean, he would shrug and say, Kirk Douglas taught me something about trying. The rest of the production went smoothly. They weren't friends exactly, but there was something between them now. A mutual respect. A shared secret. Kirk Douglas lived to be 103 years old. He died in February 2020. In 2019, a year before his death, Kirk sat for one last interview. The interviewer asked him about Dean Martin. Kirk's eyes lit up with something. Memory, perhaps. Or gratitude. Dean Martin was one of the most misunderstood men in Hollywood. Everyone thought he was lazy, just a charmer who floated through life. They were all wrong. What was he really like? He was deep, deeper than anyone knew. He carried pain that would have destroyed most men. But he turned it into grace, into lightness, into that effortless cool that made everyone feel good. I heard you two almost got into a fight once. Kirk laughed. Almost. We went out to a parking lot, ready to tear each other apart. But what happened instead was the most important conversation of my life. What did you talk about? We talked about fathers. We talked about brothers. We talked about fear and armor and the masks we wear to survive. And what did you learn? Kirk looked directly into the camera. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. I learned that the toughest man I ever met wasn't tough at all. He was just very good at hiding how much he hurt. And when I saw that, I realized I was looking in a mirror. We were the same person, wearing different masks. He paused. Dean Martin taught me that strength isn't about fighting. It's about being brave enough to stop fighting. It's about showing someone your wounds instead of your fists. The interviewer asked one final question. Do you have any regrets about Dean Martin? Kirk smiled through his tears. Just one. I wish I had told him, while he was still alive, that our conversation saved me. I was becoming my father. Angry, controlling, destructive. Dean stopped that. He showed me another way. His voice cracked. Dean Martin died on Christmas Day, 1995. I didn't go to the funeral. I was too proud. I thought I'd have another chance to tell him what he meant to me. I was wrong. He wiped his eyes. If I could go back to that parking lot, I would tell him, thank you. Thank you for not fighting me. Thank you for showing me your scars instead of your fists. Thank you for being brave when I couldn't be. Kirk Douglas died 11 months later. At his memorial service, his son Michael told a story few had ever heard. My father kept a photograph in his study. It was a picture of Dean Martin from the set of Some Came Running. He never explained why, but sometimes I would catch him looking at it and there would be tears in his eyes. Michael paused. A few days before he died, my father asked me to deliver a message at his memorial, a message to Dean Martin, wherever he is. Michael took a breath. Dean, it's Kirk. I finally understand what you meant that night. You said we were both terrified little boys pretending to be men. You were right. But meeting your little boy helped my little boy feel less alone. Thank you for everything. I'll see you on the other side, Pally. The audience wept. Because that's what happens when two men come to fight and leave as brothers. That's what happens when armor meets armor, and both decide to lay down their swords. Two fighters who never threw a punch. Two tough guys who found the courage to be soft. Two legends who discovered that the hardest thing in the world isn't winning a fight. It's being brave enough not to fight at all.